Welcome to Shone's Thoughts. I'm here on location in the University of British Columbia's forest project, and I'm sitting almost on the ground looking at this amazing sun surrounded by these beautiful trees. Many of the bushes and such, as you've perhaps seen from one of my other videos, is covered in frost, and it's simply an amazing day. And it's an amazing day for several reasons, and one of them being that every day that we live now, we are living one step closer to ridding ourselves of the matrix that we've been trapped in for such a long time. And well, this is another day that I am graced with, that I am blessed with, and that I hold so much gratitude. So thank you. Thank you sincerely for joining me. I realize there aren't so many people that are perhaps watching my videos at the present moment. Although I've mentioned it before, I do know of many other things that are far beyond the knowledge of some people that perhaps would show me or would demonstrate even that my videos are being viewed far beyond the reach of YouTube, even right now. See, one of the things about living in a matrix is that things can change as quick as the matrix changes them. And see, that's the advantage that we have right now as Homo sapiens, is to break free of the matrix, because unlike previous years where the matrix had so much control over to instantaneously, even sometimes, read our thoughts and modify the matrix to prevent us from perhaps evolving, the matrix has lost a considerable amount of power. Why has the matrix lost power? Well, as I understand it, we Homo sapiens used to power the matrix an awful lot. We used to give it its energy, some of the loosh, or perhaps a lot of the loosh that they drained from us, went into creating artificial universes and artificial constructs and artificial beings and, well, essentially the overlays that limited us. I have a video where I talked about the glass ceiling, and the glass ceiling has been here for everyone. Not just women, not just black people in America, not just any one that they've ever tried to use it upon, the Aboriginal peoples, Native peoples and such. And, there's been a lot of talk about the glass ceiling, but the glass ceiling, in my opinion, has been there for absolutely every Homo sapien to prevent them from awakening. Of course, those Homo sapiens that chose to go over to the dark side, well, perhaps they had more understanding in how to use the matrix, how to modify it or work with it in order to get what they wanted. However, for the majority of Homo sapiens, those like me who love nature, who we prefer to let everything live in best circumstances. Even mosquitoes, for example, I have often caught and put outside, caught within my hands, even at the potential that they would, bite my hand on the inside while I'm sitting there holding them cupped in between my hands. I believe that all life is important and all life is sacred. And, well, back onto what I was saying about the Homo sapiens in the matrix, is that we have been entrapped within the matrix for such a long time, longer than most people can imagine. The movie, the 1999 movie, yes, it's that old, essentially to me is a documentary. It tells of the world that we lived in. It told us about the architect, which I have found out recently that the architect's name was Archimedes, and that this place was constructed in order to keep us contained and feed from our energy, just like you'll see in the movie. The interesting thing about movies is they often had to tell us, or as Kim Gogan says, they had to tell us everything that they were doing, that they were somehow controlled by the agreement of what they were doing, or some sort of covenant and such, that they had to at least tell us what they were doing. So often they would show us in movies, and they would use predictive programming, and they would use all these other types of techniques that they had learned from all these famous scientists and different philosophers and different psychiatrists and psychologists and all these different people. They would learn how to manipulate us to the best possibility they could. And so why do I talk about this? Why do I put out there in the world that we are stuck within a prison called the Matrix? Is it to cause you to have fear? Is it to make you perhaps aware? See, my answer to the fear question is no. See, when I often talk to people about different things, they have a tendency to believe that I'm speaking from a negative point of view, or I'm, shining light or perpetuating fear, when what I see it as, or is sharing awareness, helping us truly understand the situation we're in. And now, when I do say that we're in a matrix, I do kind of essentially mean that when the matrix no longer is, and that's what's happening, many things in our world will shift. And some of those shifts will be quite dramatic. One day you'll wake up, one day you'll go to sleep and the world will be one way. And then the next day when you wake up, the world will have shifted so dramatically, so amazingly, that you'll wake up into an absolute new world. Now, what does that new world look like? Well, money isn't going to be the thing that controls us any longer. That's for damn straight. Money is going to possibly just be a tool, and a tool to simply trade what we have while we have it until we learn how to manifest all that we truly need. See, a great example of this forest right now and what I'm standing in front of is, even though it is so cold, like right now it's afternoon weather, the sun's shining, the sun is warm, and yet there are so many trees and different bushes and ferns and roots and such, and they're all covered in frost. In the middle of the day, they're still covered in frost. They're cold, yet they have the adaptability to live in this environment regardless. They're not worried about a forest fire next year, and they're not worried about put a sign here, put a sign there. They're just living as they are. And that's how I envision seeing a large portion of the Homo sapiens once all of this is over. When we're no longer required to run after within a hamster wheel towards money just to pay for our basic living experience, we're going to be so much more free in order to enjoy things like what I'm enjoying right now. And I won't need a research team to figure it all out, because there won't be needs to have people and pay people to do things, when we'll just be able to go out into the world and experience and witness and truly live in harmony with nature, and we'll get to know everything that we need to know, for example. So when we leave this matrix, the world does change. And for some of those people that are leaving, there may be things that are fearful for them. Yet that doesn't necessarily mean that they're fearful. It's just we have been programmed to essentially resist change. See, that's one of the biggest takeaways, I could say, that I learned from Tony Robbins and from Steve Scott and Kevin Trudeau and even Bashar and Ram Dass. I'm listing all these names of people that I had once listened to, perhaps, and they too had, or were inclined to say, that majority of people resist change, and yet we don't resist it subconsciously, we don't resist it consciously. We are programmed to resist change. We are programmed to resist what happens to us. And so when we're resisting to what's happening to us, we're essentially stopping it from coming into our field. We are perhaps losing an opportunity, or we're playing a game of whack-a-mole, as I've often talked about, and that we are simply knocking the mole down and we'll deal with it later. See, change is an amazing part of the human experience. It's part of the now. We can't truly be in the now if we aren't open to all types of change. See, the way I envision being in the now is essentially being in this big, we'll call it a geometric shape of a whole bunch of I don't know how to explain it, but we'll be in a field, and as we're moving forward, the world around us is changing. And when we experience the world then collapses into what we're experiencing. And yet, at the same equal moment, when we step forward again, the world shifts around us again, basically shifting towards what we our expectations, to what we perhaps are projecting, to what we choose and want to experience, but more importantly, to what is already around us. You know, there's a really amazing sequence in the movie, the most recent Spider-Man with Doctor Strange, in which they're falling through the different multiverses, as they refer to them. That's essentially a change that I would like to experience. See, everyone will have their own choice about what types of experiences they're open to and what type of reality that they would choose to live on. But with me, I would want to live in an experience where everything and anything is possible. I often joke around with my son about his game called Minecraft, that I would truly love to live in a world, and I mean an organic world, not not an inorganic artificial video game reality. I truly do mean in a real organic world. See, our perception of what is possible is severely limited by so many different mechanisms, and most importantly, the Matrix. The Matrix deciding what we're allowed to know and what we're allowed to do and how high that ceiling is, yet it's always there. And I really would love to be able to walk into the forest and create a home and live there for however long I choose to live there. Have friends over if I want, and when it's all over, when it's all said and done and I want to go somewhere else, that I simply, like the movie Ant-Man, would turn my home back into a microscopic thing that I could put in a Tix or a Tic Tac container and continue walking, and then go somewhere else and then throw it back out, and not have that effect on nature, not be required to demolish trees and move lakes and move rivers and make dams and build hydro plants and stuff to live. Along about 2 years ago, we learned, and I say we, I mean the other community members of UNN, which is United Network News, we learned of a device called a neutrino battery. And this particular battery has immense ability to create power. I also, a long time ago, had seen this demonstration of this smaller device that was able to make free energy. Somehow it would take water, break it down, create a little bit of energy, and then use that same byproducts in order to reestablish the molecule, and then once again break that molecule down, once again releasing. Because when you release or break down a molecule, a lot of times there will be energy that's released. It's the energy that kept the bonds of those molecules together. And when those molecules are broken down into two, it releases. It's called an exothermic reaction. And then an endothermic reaction is when you need to actually absorb energy. And anyways, this device demonstrated the ability to create energy for free. Ever since the days of Tesla, we've learned about the free energy possibility. And even beyond that, there's been theories and thoughts about how all the obelisks and the different buildings that all have these tall towers with metal on them and such, and the pyramids themselves, that our world was once considerably different. All you have to do is go into any type of forest like the one at the Golden Ears Park, and you will see tree stumps that are 10, 15 times bigger than any of the surrounding trees that got deforested, I would say around 70 years ago. So just right there, we see that the trees in our world were considerably bigger. And if you have a base of a tree that is 15 times bigger than its neighbors, it's probably to say that it was also 15 or more times taller. And you think about the oxygen that was in our world at that time when we had these massive trees. There's actually one on Vancouver Island. There's a whole group of them that are old growth forests that they claim to be 800 to 1,000 years old. And those things are massive. So you can imagine the massive amount of oxygen that these trees create for us. And of course, this is their science telling us how we breathe, yet it demonstrates for us the large changes that our world has went through in the last 100 years. And many, many things are therefore possible, I believe, because there is a considerable amount that the Matrix has not allowed us to actually see. It's kept us so busy running after making a dollar, running after trying to feed ourselves and our families, and running after trying to pay the mortgage with the inflation rates going out the whatever, making things quite difficult. And the Matrix really does do that. Now, see, before I wanted to criticize, or I was criticizing, like YouTube, for example. Why was YouTube not allowing me to have my videos as widely spread? And I would come across people making videos about how the algorithms would limit you, and if you did this, if you did that, basically creating a minefield of do's and don'ts. And yet when it comes down to it, it's whatever controls all of the overlays that truly does affect whether my videos get spread or not. And honestly, I talk a lot about things that perhaps other people don't necessarily talk about. And I used to be hesitant to do it because I was worried about, oh no, I'm not going to get that many views, or I won't get any likes. Well, right now I don't get very many likes on my channel. Hardly ever, actually. I'll get 1,000 views on the video and there'll be like 6 or 7 likes. I honestly am challenged at times looking at things and not understanding why more people don't like. And I did a poll one time, and people told me that they only give a like if they really like it, as if that somehow shows their likeness to it, or I don't know how to say it. Yet, as I've said before, I believe likes are just, give a little bit of love. And so often I give likes. Like in a week, I might give 1,000 or 2,000 likes just because I want to share as much love with the world as possible. I'm just slowing down my energy. I'm realizing the sun's getting brighter in my eyes, and it's getting more beautiful just to be out here, surrounded by all these trees. I got a waterfall in the back distance, surrounded by all these evergreen trees that are probably 10, 15 years old. I do truly appreciate everyone who's listening. And that includes all of the people who are off planet. That includes all the people who are perhaps not in this exact matrix that we're in right now. See, I've come to understand it that the universe, or the omniverse, is considerably larger than many of us ever imagined. And there's a whole entire group of people out there that are simply waiting and watching as we finish these last moments of our existence within the Matrix. See, I believe, and I'll come out right with it, I believe that we are on a path where in the past we would have to drop our body, as Ram Dass had said, in order to advance to the next experience. Yet this particular moment that we're in is unlike none other that's ever existed before, because we now, as Homo sapiens, or perhaps just as beings of God, that we have the opportunity now to actually move with our form through this experience in the Matrix. And that will be akin to somewhat like a Pokemon evolving into its next form. And that we will keep our form, yet we will be remembered or reunited with our abilities that we've always have had. And the Matrix's biggest goal was to limit our knowledge or our experience of these different abilities. And I refer to as abilities such as telekinesis and psychic thoughts, like being able to read one's mind, but more importantly, being able to communicate with others, other humans, other Homo sapiens, I mean, as well as nature through our thoughts. And by location, and what that means is to be able to remove yourself or change your location just by using our thought. And other things such as perhaps we won't need to eat as much anymore, because even food has been modified to keep us dependent upon what we eat, and then at the same time hit us with all these toxins and artificial ingredients that perhaps make us want to eat more of this garbage. So I look forward to a time where, when we step outside of this matrix, to only eat when I actually want to experience the purpose of eating, or eating something specific, like a delicious chocolate cake or a wonderful, wonderful pie with 10 toppings on top. I love sweets, so I mentioned that. Yeah, the Matrix is, it's taught us a lot. See, that's the whole positive part of this thing. Like, we've had a lot of different experiences that, without having darkness to contrast it to, without the Matrix utilizing their dark agenda programs, we wouldn't have had a lot of these experiences, which we in turn have grown from. And we have gotten stronger. Like, when I look back at my own journey, you could say, over the last 3 years, I've went through so many different struggles, from losing my marriage to losing all money to losing access to a bank account, to all of these different experiences. And yet God was always there. God was always with me. And somehow I always made it through. Somehow the extra dime that I needed when I was about to go buy something, I would find on the ground. That literally happened. My son was not feeling well, so I needed to buy him this expensive honey, because honey's really good for a lot of different, like raw honey is really good for a lot of different situations. And so I went into, just before I was walking into the store, I found a dime on the ground. And then when I went into the store, amazingly enough, the honey that I required was on sale. And when you added up the tax on it, that dime is what was the amount of money that was in my pocket. True story. And it's amazing the synchronicities that happen when we allow them to happen. And yeah, this journey has taught me an awful lot about humility and self-love. Taking those moments for myself, not only to reflect on the things that I learned, but also to give myself self-love, because I and you deserve it. You know, the world is not supposed to be negative, 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 good, negative, 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 good. Like, yes, that's how the Matrix was programmed to exist in, that 21% to 79%. Yet what I mean is the divine Matrix, and that's where we're moving into, is a world that is meant to be for our creation and for the unity of all species and all beings. And it's supposed to be a place where Earth herself is evolving. And that's where you see a lot of these different volcanoes and earthquakes and different catastrophes, as they may be labeled by some. And yet others can look at that and see, okay, well, the energy coming in from the sun is immense. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, or even if it's true, but often on the news I'll hear about CMEs, which is coronal mass ejections coming from the sun. And on those days that we're told that that's happening, there's definitely an awful lot of energy that's running around, circling around, and I can feel it. And I can feel the apprehension and the chaos that this incoming energy is causing. And perhaps whether or not the Matrix is using that for its own purpose, or the Matrix has caused it itself, that energy is still coming into the Earth system, and the Earth still is dealing with it as it itself, or she, removes all of the matrix pieces and players and artificial humans and stuff, and realigns itself back to its primordial directive, or the way that it believes it should be. Because the earth itself, truth is that it is conscious. We understand consciousness such a different way, and that's perhaps because some of our famous psychologists and psychiatric doctors may be of deep state origins. That was super interesting to find out about. Yet, consciousness is something that I believe that everything has, including the animals and the trees, and perhaps just everything around us. I'm looking at this tree right now and wondering, is it leaning over to listen more to what I have to say? Anyways, these are my thoughts, and I thank you for sharing your attention with me today. I thank you for sharing your attention with this beautiful backdrop that I have. And as I said before, this is going to be a special edition because unlike before where I can upload a live, although I am in a Wi-Fi area at this area, which is the UBC Forestry Project, they do have a cell tower near here. My phone company has decided that I don't need my data on my phone because I haven't paid the phone bill, because they made an error a few months ago that I have not been able to get a hold of them. And all that they're willing to do when I phone them in is please pay our bill. And when I ask them about talking to an operator, the AI keeps telling me that it can do and whatever I need, and then I tell it, and then it tells me that it doesn't understand. And then finally, after 10, 15 times, and I've tried this many, many times, the phone will actually ask me, okay, would you like to make an appointment, schedule an appointment with us, and we'll call you back. They even had one time call me back in 5 days. And then at the end of the phone calls, when I finally did agree, they just hung the phone up on me. So right there is showing me that the Matrix again is working towards pushing down that glass ceiling. Because believe you me, we're out of here. We're out of this Matrix. We are leaving. We're going on our own journey. We're going to create the reality that we choose. And we're all reconnecting and remembering that we are of God. Things will change dramatically when the shift happens. And the more that we, in a sense, prepare ourselves, and that's what this last 2 to 3 years has been for me, the easier it's going to be when we make this massive change. So, if you're ready with me, come with me. Definitely feel free to watch a lot more of my videos. I've created multiple playlists, and these playlists can be opened up and you can just play all and let all the videos play. And even if you're not going to listen to them, even if you're going to go off and, go on your own adventures, while you're at home, open up the PC, play them all, and let's show YouTube that there can be something different that people want to share their attention on, rather than the constant repetition, recycling of alternative news, talking about governments that they're leaving too. And Hollywood, they're leaving too. And country borderlines, because they're leaving too. We are going to step into a whole brand new world that's going to be considerably different. And everyone has a place there. Every Homo sapien has a place there for sure. In love, in harmony, in respect and unity. And of course, compassion. And compassion being one of the most important ones, because there's going to be a lot of people that get a sudden jolt. And compassion for everyone around us is definitely going to be something that's going to be coveted by the communities which thrive. So thank you for sharing this moment with me. And as I said, I'll upload this and it will be in the videos, yet I did it live, and I don't think I'm going to edit anything. I think I'll leave it the way it is with all my hums and haws and likes. So, it'll be the way it is. I love you so much. I love the world that we're shifting into. I love God. And I love. You can probably tell that in my channel. I love. And, anyways, I'll leave it right there. Thank you so much for joining me, and have a beautiful, beautiful sunrise tomorrow. And sunset, but we'll start with the sunrise. Bye.